Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Mobilizing Communities to Tackle Gender-Based Violence. This is the second installment of the World Justice Challenge, a Year of Impact webinar series, where today we'll be hearing about the Safe Cities Gender-Based Violence Initiative. My name is Lauren Kitts. I'm the Director of Engagement at the World Justice Project, or WJP. Since 2019, WJP has operated a global prize competition called the World Justice Challenge, which recognizes impactful, innovative initiatives that strengthen the rule of law. Last year's competition culminated in June of 2022, where WJP awarded 5 winning projects an unrestricted cash prize to acknowledge their excellence in advancing rule of law solutions. So now, 1 year later, we wanted to catch up with these winning organizations to see how their work has evolved in the last year. We'll be hosting webinars with each of these 5 winning groups throughout the summer to learn more about how they are continuing to take action for the rule of law. So today we're really thrilled because we're welcoming the Red Dot Foundation and their partners from around the world. Last year, the Red Dot Foundation was the winner of the World Justice Challenge Equal Rights and Non-Discrimination Prize for their work with the Safe Cities app. As we'll hear about today, Safecity reporting platform captures anonymous data about sexual assault incidents using a crowd map. And the data from this crowd map can then be used as a really transformative tool to bring communities together to address the root causes of safety issues in their neighborhoods. So before I hand it over to our presenters to hear more about that, just a note on the agenda. After our colleagues' presentations today, we're going to save about 15 minutes at the end for questions. So to ask questions, please use the Q&A function. It's at the bottom of your screen, and submit your question in writing. And then that's how we'll answer them at the end. So I'm going to now turn it over to ElsaMarie D'Silva, who is the founder of the Red Dot Foundation. Elsa.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Lauren, for inviting us. And we are really proud that we won the World Justice Challenge last year in the Equal Rights category. We are happy to present our work, on what has been achieved in the last 1 year. I'm just trying to pull up the slide because my colleague Camilla is having connectivity issues. Oh, thank you. So, as you know, I'm the founder of Red Dot Foundation and Red Dot Foundation Global. They are nonprofits in India and the US, and our mission is ending violence against women and girls using education and advocacy and crowdsourced data, more importantly, for citizen action. If you go to the next slide, you'll realize that actually gender-based violence is a global pandemic. It's not only an India issue where I am from, but it occurs all over the world, impacting 1 in 3 women on an average globally. I started on this journey about 10 years ago when there was a horrific incident with a young girl, Jyoti Singh, on a bus in Delhi. She was gang raped multiple times and left to die on the streets. And that was so shocking in the brutality of the incident. It made me pause and think about my own experiences, where I had been catcalled on the streets, witnessed masturbation in buses, been groped on trains, and also experienced sexual harassment at the workplace. And I realized that along with me, many of my friends had experienced the same. And it motivated me to do something concrete about it. And 10 days after the gang rape, we launched Safecity, a crowd map for sexual and gender-based violence. At the time, I was working in aviation in the private sector, and I had had a long career of close to 20 years. But I felt like I needed to follow my purpose, and this was really the issue that I zeroed in on. If you go to the next slide, as I was saying, it's not an India issue alone. It's a global issue, but there's a silence around it because 80% or more, including me, had never spoken up, never documented our incidents, never made an official complaint. And as a result, it results in an institutional data gap because there's very poor statistics and it does not show the true scope of the problem. In the United States, where I'm currently logging in from, about 43% or more women have experienced sexual violence in their lifetime. That's almost half the population. But most of them experience it before they turn 18. In fact, the statistics are 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys have been sexually abused before they turn 18 years old. And it has an impact on the GDP. It has an impact in monetary terms, both for the individual and for society. For example, in New York, a woman spends about $50 per week, that's $200 a month, just to stay safe in transport. And in India, they spend about $300 a year upgrading to what they may term as private and more safer means of transport. For the city of New York, they spent about 10.5 billion on domestic and gender-based violence prevention services. 74% of victims said that their partners interfered with their employment. And 22% of federal employees have experienced sexual harassment and say they also experienced a loss in productivity. And if we take our statistics in India, it's no better, because it also reflects in leadership, for example, where less than 9% of women are voted as leaders in parliament or in state legislative assemblies. There's also a high femicide rate impacting women before they are born, as in girl fetuses are killed before being born, and that impacts the birth rate, and so on and so forth. So sexual violence is an entire spectrum of abuse, ranging from, on one hand, the non-verbal and verbal forms of it, which we think as trivial, part of our daily routine and have been normalized. And on the other hand, it's like the extreme forms of even murder, kidnapping, etc. But without taking action or without actually seeing them in statistics, it leaves us in a position where we can't really make effective solutions or take effective action. If you move to the next slide. So through Safecity, we are making the invisible visible. How are we doing that? We have this global platform, which is available in multiple languages, including Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, etc., where anyone can anonymously report their incident of abuse. We have over 50,000 unique reports. You can zoom in right up to the street level. So on the left-hand side, you can see the map of New York with lots of bubbles. Each of those bubbles constitute a bulk of reports that have been logged on our site, documented on our site, where they're talking about the incident, the category of violence, the location, of course, the date and the time of day. And that helps us identify patterns and trends which are available open source. And this allows us to not only study the patterns and trends of the violence occurring in our own neighborhoods, but also provides us with actionable data that we can use to take action, either in conjunction with our communities, but also with institutional service providers. And we'll talk about that in the next few slides. So for example, how can individuals use this information? So you can study what's happening in your own neighborhood or the places that you frequent, and then you can be better prepared on how you want to respond to that violence. So you can have your SOS app ready, you can make a representation to your community, elected official, you can involve the police, but you can also talk to your religious leaders. And some of our partners who are presenting later can also share how they've used it in their communities. Over the past few years, we have got police to change their beat patrol timings. We've got, Western Railways, which carries millions of passengers in Mumbai, accept our data. We even have the Commissioner of Police in Mumbai assigning an officer to work on the data. So different organizations can use the data also to make informed decisions on how they want to implement policies, allocate human resources, but also financial resources for prevention programs. So these are two individuals who are from our communities. For example, Shalini is a young woman in Delhi. She had stopped going to school because, the path to her school was filled with many different problems. There were groups of men who would hang around, make fun of the women passing by, also stare at them. And she was afraid that if she had to make a complaint to her parents, they would anyway stop her from going to school, because often these are linked to honor. And, the parents want to have their children stay safe till they are married off. Child marriage is still a thing in India, and many girls are married off before they are 18 years. So education is not such a priority, the marriage is. And therefore, their honor has to be intact. And reporting such crimes, for example, might bring dishonor to the family. However, once we introduced Safecity and the data, Shalini realized she was not alone. And she, along with her friends, made representations to her community to say that these are some of the areas that we don't feel safe in, we don't feel safe walking down the streets. And so we've used art murals, street theater, but also just dialogue within the community to have people watch their back and also call out such inappropriate behavior. And today she has returned back to her school and is continuing her education. On the other hand, this young man was part of the gang of perpetrators that was sitting outside a toilet block, again in Delhi. And they would take pictures of women who were using the toilet. The toilets themselves didn't have appropriate lighting. Many of them didn't have doors and windows. And he and his friends would also, would comment, would take these videos and pictures, and the women didn't know what they were going to do about it. So again, when we introduced Safecity into that community, they invited these boys for a dialogue. And they started talking about the stories that they were, their stories of how they were experiencing this violence. And they realized, especially this young man, realized the pain that these women and girls were facing in their everyday lives. And he decided to join the campaign and be a peer educator. The sign that he's showing up is Badlav, which is change. And we really believe that the change starts from the individual in their communities. And it's up to them to create a safe space, not only to share the stories, but to start the dialogue in which you can, decode many of these socio-cultural norms, and then find strategies to change the status quo. Next, please. So this is our systems change model, where we use data that is gathered in communities in conjunction with the communities, which is like for the people, by the people, to then help them create change. And we incentivize them to actually take action with their communities, with their institutions, who can understand the patterns and trends in that data, accept the recommendations, again, emanating from the communities, but which would help institutions implement policies and resources in a more effective manner. And through all these actions, we believe that there's change happening on the ground. So thus far, we've impacted over 1 million citizens through the trainings and on-ground work that we've done with 250,000 people. As I mentioned earlier, we have 50,000 unique reports. We've trained 3,500 youth leaders. And of course, we are working with 5 police forces at the moment in India. Next slide. We have 17 partners in different countries, and you will hear from 3 ground projects today: Brazil, Kenya, and Philippines. So when we won the challenge last year, one of the focus areas was increased stakeholder and institutional partnerships. And I'm proud to say that over the last 1 year, we have invested in 10 country chapters: Philippines, Malaysia, Kenya, Croatia, Romania, the Netherlands, Brazil, New York City through Catcalls of New York, and others. And we have also collected over 10,000 reports in 1 year. And as you will see and hear from my partners, we are establishing very strong partnerships with local governments, but also with local institutions who can not only incorporate the data, but actually make the change happen through informed policies, and with community recommendations. Community is really central to our work. So we are very grateful for this award that we had. So of course, you can be part of the change. We always need donations. So please connect us to donors, funders, become our brand ambassadors and community champions, or even volunteer with us to implement Safecity. And with that, I'm going to now, I also want to say that last November at the 9th Global Forum of the Alliance of Civilizations in Fez, Morocco, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres gave us a shout out for mobilizing thousands of young people around the world to break the silence and end gender-based violence. With that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Camilla, who will talk about the Global Data Challenge, how we've engaged youth, and also the work that she started in Brazil with communities. You can download our app through that QR code, or you can even check our website, safecity.in. It's one word. Follow us on Twitter as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsa, for a really great presentation. I think it makes all of our presentations really easy now to go through. So Elsa talked a lot about how do we collect the data and the power that this data has. And I'll go through two projects that we did, one last year and then one this year, on how did we use the data? How did we collect this data and use it to make positive change in both online and physical spaces? So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the project that we did that was called the Global Data Challenge. And through the Global Data Challenge, we really understood that we were breaking the fourth wall. We were moving from digital right into physical spaces without leaving our homes. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So as Elsa said, Safecity is a platform that helps individuals, communities, and governments to create safer public and private spaces. Our technology collects and analyzes anonymous reports and then identifies key patterns that enable citizens, communities, authorities, police to really create positive change in their location. And so what was the Global Data Challenge? So by using Safecity and by using crowdsourced data, we created this challenge that was based on online hackathons conducted in the US and India. The Global Data Challenge was an opportunity for young people around the world to immerse themselves during 5 weeks to collect data, analyze it, and brainstorm solutions to make their city safer. And we did that throughout 5 weeks, and I'll quickly go through them. So starting on week 1, we did the onboarding. So we had, as I will say a little bit after that, we had people from over 30 countries joining us. So we onboarded them on how to use Safecity app and also about ethics and data collection. So after they were prepared to go out into the field and collect that data, we talked to them about ethics and data, and then they, on week 2, went into the data collection period. Participants went out and collected information from their friends, from themselves. And then another thing that we invited them to do was also to collect data as bystanders, just to observe what's happening in public transportation, what's happening in their local market, and really take the time to see what's happening beyond what they were used to seeing. They came back on week 3 and analyzed in groups that data. They were divided into different types of harassment. So we had 8 groups, and each group focused on analyzing data trends on one specific type of violence, and that data was global. So group 1, for example, analyzed data on catcalling and commenting. And they analyzed data from all of the countries. From over those 50,000 reports, they analyzed data from all of those countries into that one specific type of harassment. And then after analyzing, they were able to understand a little bit better of what did that meant? What were some of the external factors that contributed to that? Was it lack of lighting? Was it a really crowded space? What was happening in that one location? And then on week 4, they brainstormed solutions. So in those main groups, participants came up with global solutions to specific gender-based violence issues, and then they presented their solutions to various participants and guests as well. So based on that, we created this quick research, and our position statement was, because the Global Data Challenge was conducted virtually, people from over 30 countries were able to come together despite their cultural differences to brainstorm and create actionable projects and proposals that contain global solutions for the prevention of GBV. And our research question was, how does the online environment influence and nurture the engagement of people from different parts of the world on conducting data collection, analysis, and brainstorming solutions for the prevention of gender-based violence in different cultural contexts? Talking a little bit about what was the theoretical framework for the GDC. So we mimic the communicative methodology, which is inclusive, egalitarian, and allows individuals themselves to perceive their own capacities of communication and understand the world and generate knowledge. So they were discussing and debating between themselves and trying to find solutions. And the research design, we use the environment, the online environment, and it was really beautiful because it allowed cultures to clash, and then after that clash they collaborated really well, and it really allows them to move past the barrier of country and create new policies and new solutions that could be implemented anywhere in the world. Talking about our ethics, all participants were introduced and signed POSH forms, and then all signed informed consents about the research. And some of our limitations were that the research was conducted in a really short period of time. And due to connectivity issues, many participants who signed up couldn't join due to lack of access to connectivity and Wi-Fi in their own locations. Some of our outcomes, as I said before, we had 200 people join in from 30 different countries. From those 200, we were able to generate 52 certificates of completion. So after 5 weeks, 52 people were really engaged with us, and 7 interventions were presented as a way to end GBV globally. And then from that, we came up with the Youth League for Safer Cities, which was a group of selected participants from all across the world that came through the Global Data Challenge that advocated with their local government for legislative changes to make cities safer. The Youth League for Safer Cities created a 4-week curriculum for high school teachers on the prevention of GBV, online harassment, and cyberbullying. And that was implemented in 5 countries with over 40 schools. And it's a curriculum that can be available to be used in any other country. And some of the responses that we had was that this curriculum was really great for the teachers who wanted to talk about online harassment. The students knew about online harassment, but just really didn't know what to do with that. And they were able to complete, and they were able to move forward and really do something about it, and are now more informed about online harassment and cyberbullying in their lives. And our conclusion to this, so with the data, I think this really talks about the power of the data of Safecity, is that through the data, we were able to connect people from 30 different countries on an online virtual space for them to put their heads together and really look at their local context, but bring that to a global perspective. And how can your local context change the global perspective on one issue? It was really interesting for the Youth League for Safer Cities, and then for all the other participants that joined us through the Global Data Challenge, to also understand that what happens in one country can be either really similar or really different to what's happening in another. With a unique solution that works for them, both locally and global, which really breaks that fourth wall barrier. And now our second engagement that was done this year, which was the Brazilian safe bars during Carnival. This was a physical event that we did. And to talk a little bit and to give some context on the Brazilian Carnival, it's a 5-day party. It does not stop. When it starts, it only ends after 5 days. The parties happen in the streets, in the clubs, in the bars, and all of the streets in the city center are closed down. No cars are allowed. You have to go through the outskirts because there's people everywhere. This year in the city of Belo Horizonte, which is where I'm located, we had 5 million attendees. And that's not accounting Rio or Salvador, which are cities that have much bigger carnivals. But we had in the city of Belo Horizonte 5 million people. So imagine in a city center that comprises of most 20 streets, 5 million people gathered during 5 days with a lot of drinking, with a lot of music. Sexual harassment is unfortunately bound to happen. And the worst part is that it's normalized. Because Carnival consists in 5 days of no rules, people really see it that way. They can start drinking at 7 a.m. and only stop at 3 p.m. the next day. It's a 5-day of no rules. So because there's no rules, harassment is considered normal and part of the Carnival culture. And bars and restaurants receive people from all over the world to celebrate the holiday. I brought here 3 things that we heard, reports that we're taking into Safecity during Carnival. And this is some of the stories that we heard was during Carnival, a man touched my body and run away. I was in a Carnival party with some friends and someone grabbed my boobs. I was in a club with my girlfriend and some friends, and I had a drink in my hand. And after taking some sips, I started feeling really dizzy. I felt sick for a few hours. My friends who sipped the drinks also felt sick, so someone tried to drug us. So these reports are really normal. It's something that happens. Use this data and do something different in this context. So we did the Safe Bars campaign. So with really colorful, as you can see here, really colorful stickers, really colorful banners. We distributed 4,000 stickers during Carnival. As you can see here, in the background of this picture, you can see lots and lots of people, drinks. So we post those out in the streets. We gave out to people and we talked about Safecity to each of them that we handed the sticker in. And then we also talked to 15 bars and restaurants that were located in the center and asked them for us to hang posters about Safecity in their bathrooms. What happens in this poster, we have 3 versions of it, and they are, as you can see, it looks like a SMS message, and it's someone just talking to a friend about something that happened to them. And then we have a call to action. Has this ever happened to you? Your story can prevent from other people to become victims. Share your story. And then we have a step-by-step on how to report. And some of the responses that we got from the people that received our stickers and from the bars was that this is so useful. I'm glad to have it in our space. It's a lovely initiative. Everyone needs to know about this. And through this, we're able to start tapping into this partying community here and try to drive some change. So yeah, this was our Safe Bars campaign. I would like to thank you and hand it back to Elsa.
Thanks, Camilla, for sharing. I have one question for you. What made, so we know the partying culture and that, people experience violence. What was the reception of these bars and restaurants to the campaign?
They were really excited about it. And thank you so much for the question. They were really excited about it because even though there's this culture of Carnival is a space with no rules, the bars and restaurants, the mayor's office knows that this is a problem. It's just hard to tackle. So everyone was really receptive. And in fact, the carnival from this year in Belo Horizonte was considered one of the safest carnivals in the country, with the lowest rate of sexual harassment, which means that more people are trying to tap into this issue and trying to make a change.
Thanks, Camilla. Now, I would like to invite Lizelle Lectura from the Philippines to share her work with the Safecity app. So Lizelle is the program coordinator for Safecity, and our partner is an organization called Bai Inc. And they have a program called Angat Bai, which is focused on women's leadership in politics. So over to you, Lizelle. Please share with us your experiences.
Yeah, a good day. Thank you, Miss Elsa, for the introduction. So again, I'm Lizelle Lectura. As Elsa mentioned, that I am the volunteer project manager of this project, Safecity Philippine chapter. And yes, I'm an Angat Bayi fellow, and I was able to complete the Angat Bayi Women Empowerment and Leadership Program of Bayi Inc. last year, October 2022. With Miss Maya, she offered me this project, the executive director of Bayi Inc. And first, I would like to express our gratitude to Miss Elsa, Camila, and the entire Safecity team and the organizers of the World Justice Project for giving us the wonderful opportunity to share our experience. So we will be presenting how we work with local government units in the Philippines to counter the gender-based violence using the Safecity application innovation. So as you see in the slide, one of our strategies is partnering with Angat Bayi Fellows, which is I was a graduate of this program. And why us? Because it's easy to no need for the buying to influence about the feminist governance principles, because we already understand the principles of the buying. So we all know that sexual violence is a pervasive issue that affects the individuals across all sectors. So Bayi Inc. adapts and partners with different institutions and organizations, private, public, and local or international, that align with their directions, transformative feminist leadership principles. So to effectively combat that challenges encountered by women and children, we prioritize the social inclusion and protection of the vulnerable sectors. So our advocacy now is to campaign this Safecity project or Safecity application, applying the principles of 7Cs, the feminist governance as developed by the Bayi Inc. This principle aims to dismantle the unequal power relations and foster inclusive and intersectional solutions by empowering marginalized sectors. So we strive for transformative social change. So how do we do that? We hope the communities recognize the existing situation and encourage them for critical thinking through consultative and evidence-based thinking and data analysis. That's where the Safecity data reporting comes in. Then the Safecity application promotes the protection of women and children, allows us for context-specific analysis and problem solving tailored to the needs of each community that we're working with. So we train the community, our partners, to be creative and innovative in developing solutions to the problem. So this is being conducted through stakeholders consultations. So as we all know that participation is very important. And our approach with feminist governance, we ensure that no one is left behind. Thus, we promote collective leadership. Accountability is very important, transparency and collaboration. So there is also the different accountabilities undertaken but by the different sectors, organizations, and institutions. So our approach to address gender-based violence is beyond recording and monitoring of reports. We also value the well-being of individuals, the survivors, and the community as a whole. So we exhibit respect, empathy, and compassion, which is important with this action. So we need to be caring in that aspect. So to address the sexual violence, it is essential to have accurate data on incidents and trends. So our methodology of data collection, we involves community members, local government units, private organizations. We collaborate with local authorities and all stakeholders. So we have this approach, as you see in the next slides. We partnered with the different local government units, non-government organizations, the schools and communities, especially the the SPED, the schools with this person with disabilities, students. So we partner with them, and we held consultations meetings, and we conducted competency-based training. We participated this awareness campaign on gender-based violence in partnership with Ayala Mall. So this we are proud of this activity when we participated in the sexual harassment campaign, because the when we trained the volunteers, the community volunteers and the vocal, we called it vocal person, as you see in the picture, they were able to mobilize and coordinate different sectors. So that's part of the empowering strategies that we've been undertaken. So also to engage the community, we have these activities recently. We conducted these poster making competitions to encourage the community and learn about the safe city and security. And then we promote the safe city application after this activity. And then we build partnership with different organizations. The same in the next slide. So next slide, please. So we have this interactive orientations and activity in the communities. Also, we have this psychological wellness and well-being training with Luna's Collective and the Feminist Legal Networks with BAI. So this is what we're undertaking in the Philippines. So for the next steps, where our future target is to work with the different national government agencies and the department, particularly the Department of Transportations, where the sexual harassment and violence prevalently occur. So this is our next activity. And also we're planning to have the Safe City Caravan to participate in the November 18 activism, in 18 days activism in November 18. So, and earlier today, we agreed with the community, we're not using the Safe City application as a tool. We wanted, it is a suggestion of the community, we wanted the Safe City as a movement. So that is our learnings for earlier today's meeting with the community group leaders. So that's all.
Thank you, Liesel. And you are a great example, as well as Jane, who comes next, of how good tech activated through smart partnerships has the best chance of actually addressing a very difficult issue like gender-based violence. So thank you for your work. And with that, we'll stop the screen share, and I want to invite Jane. Jane Anyango is our partner in Kenya. She is the Executive Director of Polycom Development Project. And Jane is a powerhouse. So Jane, would you like to share a little bit about your work and also share how you started, using Safecity in your work in 2014, very early on at the start of our own journey. So you saw the potential in us and asked if you could use it in your community. So please share how you did it, what came out of it, and also tell us a little bit about your work. Thank you. Jane, you're on mute.
Thank you so much. Those are digital challenges. So my name is Jane Anyango from an informal settlement in Kenya called Kibera. It's the biggest informal settlement in sub-Saharan Africa. So working in Kibera with adolescent girls, I noticed that there are girls who talk and they don't, like the girls who are experiencing challenges in their communities and they don't talk about them. So we came up with a platform we call the talking boxes, where we would install in schools, boxes in schools, lock them up and get children to share about issues that they face in their various communities. So we collected data, but we didn't know what to do with data. So in 2014, I met Elsa during fellowship program in Nepal, in Kathmandu, Nepal. And when I listened to her presenting about the Safecity app, I was very much excited. I was like, now I know how I'm going to, what I'm going to do with the data, and I know how to organize my data. So I picked it immediately, and when I came back home, we organized girls to start collecting data on sexual harassment. It was a little challenging because most of our young people, especially from the informal settlements, don't have telephone, they don't have phone, and they don't have access to internet. So we came up with notebooks where we were looking at what, when, where, and who, so we could collect data from the kids, from these young people. And what is interesting again is that what I learned from Elsa is that we had this graphical representation of different forms of sexual harassment. So this one made it very easy, and I still wanted to customize it to our context. So I engaged the people I work with to tell me if the posters were relevant in our context. And even the things that I thought were not relevant, like exposure, indecent exposure, which I thought wasn't really relevant in our context. The children were very, very categorical, and they say this is very common. When we are passing, some men, they hide and they pretend to be passing urine, and yet they are showing us their stuff. So it became very interesting for us, and we collected data during that time. Right now, we are part of the ongoing project where we have managed to recruit champions to collect data on sexual harassment. And we are very passionate about the word harassment, because in Kenyan law, when we are talking about sexual harassment, we are only looking at within the formal employment spaces. But now with this app, or with this conversation, we have been able to prove that it happens in public spaces, it happens within schools, and it happens, anyone can experience it, including the young girls. So we were able to collect data and come up with a policy evidence report that was launched by a very senior government official, and it has informed how our county assembly developed their own policy on sexual harassment. It's a big conversation that is there. Right now we are working with 50 schools. We are collecting data through 50 schools, and we are also working with the schools to come up with safeguarding policies within the schools. Because what we notice is that most perpetrators of sexual harassment, the people who touch, the people who comment, the people who whistle call, they don't even know that they are sexually harassing the people they are directing these ones to. So we have been able to have champions. These champions are well branded. We send them to spaces, and we send them to people's spaces because, when you call people to your space, then they are the usual people, the people you work with every day. But when you go into their spaces, then you are able to meet new people. So we go into new spaces and talk about sexual harassment, and everybody is very excited about it, because for a long, long time, it has been assumed, people are only run when sexual violence happens, when people are raped and defiled. That is when people are running everywhere, left, right, and center. But on preventing sexual violence, nobody has worked on it before. So to us, mapping sexual harassment is about preventing sexual violence. We have talked with the government, we have had conversations with the government and even local authorities on making our spaces safe. And as Elsa, just in 1 minute, let me share about the model we are using right now. We call it the cross model, where we know where to collect our information, how to organize the right information or conversation with who, and how to engage different civil society organizations and even the schools. And even going up, we are getting into policy spaces under the UN, with our local government, and even within the African region. So this sexual harassment conversation is becoming a very big conversation. Right now, we lead SDG 11, like implementation of SDG 11. We are monitoring the implementation by different actors, and we are now taking this into the space, because when people are talking about infrastructure, without looking at safety, without lighting, without just having good spaces where women can feel safe, then it's not really going to get anywhere. So I'm just happy to be part of this space, and thanks so much, Safecity. We are learning every day, and I believe we are going far. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. And, this is very powerful. I have one question before we open it up to the audience. One of the stories that I heard was that you engaged religious leaders and used community radio. Can you share, the effect of that?
Yeah, thank you so much. We had children who reported to us about these young men who sit somewhere on the road when they're going home, and they catcall them, they force them to hug them, they try to touch them. And so the location that they had mentioned was next to some mosque. It was called Mosque Ndogo. Ndogo is the small in Kiswahili. So what we did is that we called different stakeholders together, including the sheikh. And the sheikh, when they heard about it, we would discuss together how we are going to make that space safe. So we went to the local radio station. It's called Pamoja FM within Kibera. And when we went there, so we got our own person to go and join the boys with a small radio. And when now they were discussing about this location, we were reading directly the things they tell these children and how they behave towards these children. And now they were the ones who are listening to the radio right now, listening to the stupid things they do and how they harass the children passing there, and their children who opted to take very long routes to school because they were scared of being harassed. So when this was discussed, these boys were really embarrassed, and now they became our champions. They now were the ones telling people, hey, if you tell that is very wrong, and they stopped sitting next to this mosque, because the sheikh also helped us a lot in ensuring that this conversation took place within the next to this mosque. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane, for that. And it clearly shows that when you have the data, you can map the problem and the solutions start to reveal themselves. And the solutions don't often have to be only around police and policing, but really engaging, stakeholders like religious leaders, elders, and others who have influence in the community. And we can transform little and big ideas into action. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass it to Lauren to moderate if there are any questions from the audience.
Great. Thank you so much to all of the speakers for your presentations and for sharing with us how Safecity is really being used around the world to address all these diverse issues related to gender-based violence. And if any of the audience has questions for the panelists, please use the Q&A function on your Zoom screen to submit them in writing, and we have a few minutes for questions. One thing that really occurs to me from these presentations, and Liesl, what you said about it being a movement is so true, that this is really more than just an app. It's more than a data collection process. It really is a movement to use this data to inform social change, and clearly being used in such diverse ways from schools, bars, community organizations, based on the particular threats and needs of that community. Showing that it's such a highly adaptable app. It's really impressive. So one question that we have is, what are some of the strategies that work best for getting local governments and police to actually respond to some of these incidents? How do you present the data and influence these policymakers in a way that gets them to make the changes needed to make the communities safer?
Thanks, Lauren. So this is a great question, and my partners can chip in after I'm done. But what I found over the last 10 years, what works is that we are not naming, shaming, or blaming. So, it is a safe space for not only survivors to report, but also for the other side to receive the data. You see, during the Me Too movement, there was a lot of naming, shaming, and blaming, which is great. It has its benefits because we saw a lot of change happen after that. But it also put men on the defensive, institutions on the defensive. And here we are trying to meet them halfway, So, and I think that collaborative mindset, that brings about a collaborative mindset. So that is one. The second one is that 90% or more of our respondents have said that they have not gone to the police and will not go to the police. So this is a new data set that they don't have. And if we can bring that into their decision-making process with other data sets that exist, they may have a better, clearer picture, right? of what is going on. Because if you don't know what you're solving for, you're essentially operating in the dark. The third strategy is engagement of communities. We are saying you're not alone. As a survivor, it is not your fault. You're not alone. You are part of communities. It's the responsibility of society and others to provide you a safe space to live, thrive, and work in. So I think the community piece is essential, because through that, the power of the collective really helps you advance in your advocacy. And it gives you that credibility to push for change to happen. And again, the last bit is really, what are some of the actions? It's not always institutional, right? A lot of this violence occurs because of harmful social, cultural norms. Can we get our communities to think more deeply how these are impacting individuals, and then start to recalibrate these norms so that everyone can live equally and safely? And here I'd like to ask others if they want to share. You may raise your hand.
Would any of our other panelists like to address the question? So if not, we can move on to some other questions. We have some in the chat. So Camila said Elsa said it all. So we have a question from someone about the MENA region, asking about how you can actually influence women to use the app, as well as believe that there will be change that will come from reporting. There are a lot of countries where sexual harassment laws are very loosely defined. So how do you assure the users of the app that it's safe to use, raise the awareness that it exists in the first place, and make them understand how they can use the app?
Thank you. Thank you, Luma, for your question. With Generations of Peace, which is an organization in Jordan, we have redone the Jordan version of our app. So if you put country Jordan, you will actually get a new set of questions which are totally customized for Jordan by Generations of Peace, Generations for Peace. And we have a general Arabic version in line with the rest of the Safecity application. So you can now access it in Arabic. We don't do things by ourselves. Like you can see, we brought our partners here to talk about it because it is highly contextual. It's very local. So we want our partners to, bring in that cultural and local context, the understanding of the violence, and also the solutions. As for safety, we do not collect any personal information, no name, email, phone number, IP address, or social media handles. So it's completely anonymous, completely in line with GDPR. Every report is read before it's published, because there is a free text version where somebody could, if they wanted, put in personal details or names of the perpetrators or whatever. We read every single report and redact those personal details if it is put in. If we have a doubt, because over 10 years of reading these reports, we also understand how survivors report. If we have any doubt, we refer it back to our local partners to help us understand if this is what we may term as a genuine report or not, and then make a call in conjunction with them. We would love to partner with you if you're in the MENA region. So do check our app out. I'll put the details in the chat section. But again, it's totally in collaboration with our partners. And maybe over here, Jane, Liesel, I think I see Maya has also joined us. You can add some points over here.
Yeah. In the Philippines, we're on the process of preparing for the translation in our local language in Tagalog. But we agreed as part of the innovative measures, we agreed to set up a feedback mechanism on using the Safecity application by the focal persons of our community. So maybe in the next few months, we could get their impressions or insights about the questions.
Great. And we also heard from Jane in the chat that they use flyers with clear pictures of what amounts to sexual harassment. so that there's something that women can compare to so they can understand what it is they should be reporting. So that's another interesting tactic for explaining to users of the app how they should use it and why. So one more question for you, Elsa, which is, what is next for Safecity? You've already expanded so much in the last year since we met you at the challenge. It's more than 10 new users, new locations. Where do you hope to go now?
Thank you. So, we are actually raising funds because we want to invest in 10 of these chapters that we have partnered with to go deep on institutional partnerships. So like, for example, Jane is working with schools, 50 schools in Kibera, but she's also working with the local MP to expand the definition of sexual harassment. She's working with other stakeholders like the UN Habitat, which is based out of Nairobi, and they have a Safer Cities program. We'd like to support that. We'd like to support Maya and team, Liesel included, with implementation in different barangays and with different mayors. So barangay is the smallest local government unit where the barangay captain has the power to issue ordinances. And for example, one barangay captain has issued an ordinance endorsing the app and inviting the community to report and actioning the data in real time. So every time there are reports coming in, they are checking the app, the front end of the app, as well as we give them the backend data. But say, for example, there's a spurt of domestic violence in one community, immediately they respond in advertising resources, having community-based awareness programs for both the survivor and potential perpetrator. So I think it's a very interesting model. All of this needs to be supported because a lot of it is being done pro bono. And we want to support our partners in 10 of these chapters. For example, the Netherlands chapter is not here, but they work with the mayor's office, and especially they are looking at night city life. Is the nightlife, cities we tend to think of only from a daytime perspective, but from a nighttime, people are out and about, maybe enjoying themselves, taking transport late at night. Is it safe or not safe? So they have a night mayor in many parts of the Netherlands. And so they are working with the night mayor, which I think is again an interesting concept. And how do we engage more young people to take action? Because, the global data challenge that Camilla presented is a great replicable model for anyone to collect the data, use the data. We don't even have to be involved. They can do it themselves and, start to take action. And it's little actions that actually will make the big change happen.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Elsa. Our time is nearly up, but I want to really close out by sincerely thanking all of our speakers, Elsa, Camila, Liesel, and Jane, for sharing this really diverse and really impressive work that you're doing with all of us today. So thank you again. This was incredibly interesting and really inspiring for me personally. So the recording of this webinar is going to be posted on WJP's YouTube channel. I would encourage everyone, if you'd like to, return to it or share it, it will be there. And before we end, I just want to make a plug for the next webinar in this series of our challenge winners from 2022. So the next one will be on July 26th, and we're going to hear from Access to Justice champions from Cambodia. And when it comes to rule of law, Cambodia is a particularly critical place. According to WJP's Rule of Law Index, it has nearly the weakest rule of law in the world. It ranks 139 out of 148 countries, second only to Venezuela. So in this webinar, a group of human rights activists, including the challenge winner, Cambodia Bridges to Justice, are going to share insights about how they do their work, even in this extremely challenging environment, and discuss their vision for how to meaningfully invest in people-centered justice programs. So this should really be an excellent conversation, and we invite you to tune in on July 26th. So with that, I want to again thank our panelists. Thank you for sharing more about Safecity with us. And thank you everyone who joined us. We hope that you enjoyed it and learned something. So take care everyone, and thank you again.
Thank you. And I've tried to respond to the questions that were posted. So do check it out. And you can also write to me, elsa@red.foundation.org. Thank you, Lauren and team, for giving us the platform.
Thank you, Elsa. Take care, everyone.